Welcome to the Resellers Niche Podcast, a show for e-commerce buyers and sellers where we investigate unique categories of items being bought and sold and show you how research equals knowledge equals profit. And now the duo who'll never leave you shortchanged. It's your hosts, Russ and Mo.
Welcome, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the Resellers Niche Podcast. How's it going over there in Florida, Russ?
It is finally raining, Mo. How are things in California?
Nice and sunny.
Nice and sunny. Well, we'll take it. I want to introduce this week's podcast, or this episode podcast guest. This is Prof Sales, and he goes by Prof Sales on his YouTube channel. And Jason is his name that he goes by. And he goes by Prof Sales not only because he's an actual professor, but in the reselling community, he is the professor of jeans. And that's what we want to speak with him today about. This has been a successful venture for him. His processes are very thorough and duplicatable. Using his methods that he shares on his YouTube channel, Prof Sales, I myself was able to scale up about 200 pair of jeans in a short amount of time. So, Jason, you're one of the best examples we have of our motto on our show of research equals knowledge equals profit. And Jason, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Before we get into some questions, I definitely want to thank you for all the content you put out on YouTube. It's things like your 10 at 10, those 10 minutes you do every morning at 10 Eastern. That's very informative and always fun. And it's a live chat, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We really enjoy those. So always good to get good feedback on them. But yeah, they've been a lot of fun for us too.
Awesome.
And so can we take it back to the very beginning? Actually, before you even sold on eBay, was there anything you did before that in terms, because I know jeans was something you started doing. It wasn't just jeans before. What got you into eBay or thinking about selling?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always wanted to be in business for myself. And, selling online seemed like a natural progression just because I had a retail management background and sold a lot of things, working a few different businesses and so on. So eBay seemed like a good fit. I didn't know as much about Amazon then, and so eBay was kind of the first place I started with. So that's probably why.
Okay. And then was jeans one of the first things you looked at, or was it were there a combination of other things in there as well?
No, actually it wasn't. I just wanted to get my feet wet in some other areas, and I realized really quickly I needed something that was repeatable and was readily available and cheap to source, and that is really how I got involved with jeans, as well as my background. I worked for some retailers that sold a lot of jeans, so it made it sort of a natural fit.
Okay. And then was it, I guess, because you talked about that a lot later, or was that kind of you just progressed on to Amazon?
It was weird. I have a love-hate relationship with Amazon. I basically had gone on to Amazon pretty early on with, a few things here and there, retail arbitrage and so on, and then kind of dabbled back and forth with it. But now I actually am getting the last of my Amazon items shipped back to me right now. So pretty dedicated to eBay at this point in terms of big e-commerce platforms.
Gotcha. So let me make sure I'm right. You had kind of been in jeans before with the retail, so you had knowledge of it before you even started. So you were using some of the knowledge that you already had. So when you got ready to do the jeans on eBay, how much more time did you spend in research on that?
Actually, a lot. I'd like to tell you that I hit the ground running and knew everything there was to know. But what I didn't know was that I'd worked for Gap, which sold Gap jeans. And Gap's a great brand, nothing wrong with it at all. They also have Banana Republic and Old Navy. They're all in the same umbrella. But I didn't know much about other jean brands. So I needed to do a lot of research actually right off the bat just to educate myself about the other brands that are out there, average selling price, how available they were, their features, sizing, I mean, you name it. It was actually quite a bit of research up front.
So you didn't have a Prof Sales on YouTube to go to like I did.
There were people who existed. I just didn't know they existed.
Right.
So no, not anyone in particular, but there were other gene resellers out there. I didn't even know that there were really resellers on YouTube. I just sort of stumbled on it by accident probably 2 years ago.
During that first couple of weeks, what do you think were some of your biggest obstacles that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Well, the first one is just the brand knowledge. And so the first thing not one of the first things, but one of the first things I did was I searched all the gene brands on eBay. I did men's and I did women's. And I tried to break it down by, all right, how many are there listed of this brand and this brand and this brand? It turned out there were hundreds and hundreds of brands listed, but most of them didn't have a lot of items listed. But that took a long time to sort of start narrowing that down to like, all right, this one's got a big niche, a big following. This one's got a big one, but is it really worth it? That was the next piece was the average selling price really high enough to justify even going after that brand? And that took probably, twice as long as figuring out what the brands were just to kind of go in and start figuring out the average selling price. So those first few weeks, I mean, it was a lot of research and not much buying. It was the old saying, measure twice and cut once. It was more like measure 10 times and cut once before I really started diving into my first few brands.
Yeah, you don't really realize until you start picking genes how many brands you can find.
Right.
I knew everybody knows top brands, but yeah, there's a lot of brands. I was kind of amazed when I started picking them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's dive back into the beginning of your YouTube channel. Could I ask what you were a professor in or what you taught?
Yeah, I was actually a professor of political science and international relations, of all things.
Oh, okay. Because the reason I asked is because actually this morning I went back and I watched your first, I want to say 5 or 6 videos. And those,
Lord.
to be honest, no. I found them extremely relevant because I've watched a lot of YouTube, lots of different channels. Your shows are still, I thought, relevant to today in terms of just the content that was in there. What was thinking behind actually, because the first 5 or 6, they were kind of PowerPoint presentations,
Right.
Very spreadsheet based. What was your thinking behind that?
Well, my first thought was I don't want to be on camera.
Okay. I'm right there with you.
And I wanted to maintain some anonymity, but also provide content. And I knew me just sitting in front of a screen, with nothing on it and just sound may or may not be that exciting. I didn't even know about podcasts really that much at that point either. But my thought was, all right, I can deliver information graphically while also talking through it. And, people learn through audible, they learn through visual, they learn through different methods. And I thought I can do that without being on camera and making it about me, the person, so much as it's about what the content is and how I can hopefully relate it to someone and really teaching myself. I mean, honestly, you teach as much, I think, you learn as much when you teach something as the people they're learning that you are teaching. So it was for me as well, it's kind of a selfish reason, honestly, but I did learn a lot in those first few videos, but I will say they're not the best quality. So, but thanks for the compliment.
No, because I was watching, I kind of went step by step, and I thought the first one was perfect in terms of what it was covering. So that's why I brought that up. So kind of moving forward from that, was that how you started when you were thinking, or was that more for what you wanted to portray and show people about how to get started with eBay, or is that exactly how you started it as well?
It was kind of like a self-help guide, but also for myself. But I really wanted to focus on, from day one, the mental processes. I didn't really want to get all bogged down in, this is what I bought, this is what it sold for. I mean, I've done some of that too, kind of the haul video idea. But I'm a big believer in, though, you teach someone to fish, you don't give them a fish. And so if I wanted to do anything, that's what I wanted to do. I always, when I was teaching, I wanted to equip people to go out and think for themselves. I didn't want to indoctrinate them. I wanted to question them and say, hey, you need to question your beliefs, question the beliefs of anything you hear, and think about it, and not just accept it, without thinking. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do with those first few videos as well. So that was my objective.
Gotcha. Thank you. Our mutual friend, Chris, 10K on the Bay, one of the things that he and I have spoken at length about are the big three in reselling: time, space, and capital. And with jeans and clothes, there's always that space issue. How did you tackle that?
Well, the first thing I started thinking about was, honestly, and I've told this story before, is I started setting jeans on a table and underneath a table and then on another table. It was like the worst inventory system. I wouldn't even call it a system. But I realized very quickly, and this went back to my retail days, that jeans stack. And they stack in a fairly same size stack. So I knew that if I could figure out, all right, this many jeans will fit in this much space, then I can find fixtures or bins or shelves or something that would allot me so much space per shelf or so much space per bin. And I realized pretty quickly that just stacking them on shelves like back to back actually was about as efficient a way as you could get. I've looked at all different ways. I've toyed with changing it before. But believe it or not, I have, just these black 36-inch shelves, and you can fit 6 stacks of jeans, on each of those shelves. It's 7 a stack. That's 42 pair. That's pretty efficient in my mind. You can stack them five shelves high. So, you can get 5 times 42 on each one, which is 210.
Right.
So that was kind of what I knew, that by having the same item, I could, replicate the system over and over. But I also knew that it was a decent size item. It's not like I'm collecting stamps and selling them. So I knew I was going to need a lot of space to start stacking and storing hundreds of items. So that was how I kind of came up with the inventory idea, at least part of it.
Gotcha. And take that to that next level and explain to the listeners how you do your location in your inventory control, like when something sells.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I get that question a lot, actually.
Well, it's a good system, Jason. That's why, it really is.
Well, I wish I could take credit for it, but I didn't create it. I decided early on that the big players, the eBays, or not so much eBay, but the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world had already figured out inventory. So I didn't need to really recreate anything. I just needed to mimic what they were doing on a smaller scale and for product that would work. So what I did was, very simply, is I thought, all right, you've got an area. Say it's area A. Doesn't matter. Or you can make it area 1, whatever you want to call it. Area 51 if you want. But whatever you want to call it. You've got area A, and in area A you've got a fixture. We'll say it's fixture A. And then on fixture A you've got a bunch of shelves. And you've got shelf 1, shelf 2, shelf 3. And then on each shelf you've got bin spots, 1, 2, and 3. So if you think about it, you got area A, fixture A, shelf 1, bin 1. That's AA11. So you can create a very simple 4-digit system that allows you to, put something anywhere and very quickly find it. And if you don't need all 4 digits, if you're like, hey, I'm going to have everything in one area, there is no area A for me, great. Take off the letter A. Doesn't matter. The great thing about that system is you can keep building on it. It doesn't stop anywhere.
Right. You sell one of those items in that location.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about now you've got an empty slot in your inventory location system. That a lot of times I used to work in inventory systems program.
Right.
So that was always the thing. You've got that empty slot. Now you've got to fill it. And you've got to put that new inventory with the actual slot number. So
right.
you kind of solve that issue on that aspect. So,
yep.
And also your technique of listing, the way you've done it really cuts down on listing time.
Right.
Give us some of the top things you did on that to speed up your listings.
Well, I think there's a couple things. Obviously, having familiarity with a niche, which I'm a big believer in, and people finding some niches to sell in rather than just going wide and selling a little bit of everything. you're going to get to where you can price things very, very quickly. That's one step. I mean, I don't really need to look up a pair of jeans anymore to see how to price it. I can tell you, pretty darn close kind of what the top end of the range is, the middle, and sort of the low end. And then I can price accordingly based on, the fit in a lot of times and the size. So familiarity with your product in a niche is a really powerful tool for being able to list faster because you don't have to do research on it. I also know by that familiarity, what's important to list about it, what's important to put in the title, what's important to put in the item specifics, what's important to note about the condition, what photos to take. Again, all these things come when you have familiarity with a niche or just a few niches. And the second thing that I really like to do that I think speeds up processing time is just batching tasks together. Not everybody processes that way. I used to do it one at a time. I would literally look at the quality, take a photo, come over, list it, store it, put it away. But I found that really it was quicker for me to go through and batch, hey, I'm going to check the quality on 20 jeans at once here. All right, those 20 are done. Now I'm going to take photos of all 20 of those jeans. All right, all the photos are done. Now I'm going to list those 20 jeans. And for my brain, that works quicker. Some people it might not. But I just think being able to batch tasks together like that, I think that's a lot stronger, especially when you're dealing with the same type item like that. You can really just sort of fly through them. You can create templates on eBay that allow you to go very, very fast because you fill in a lot of your information over and over. I can create I have templates, and I can use a template and list just as fast as someone who does a sell similar to somebody else's listing. And by the way, I don't have to fool with maybe that sell similar I'm doing had a bunch of stuff in it that I really don't have in my listing that I got to take out. It's starting clean. It's starting fresh. It's got my return policy, my shipping time, all that stuff. And I just think, familiarity and batching are huge and really will speed you up no matter what you're selling.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then moving towards brands, I know for me, I haven't really sold that many jeans. So for a newbie, could you throw out a few, I guess, brands that you kind of always see, you always want to pick up if you can?
Yeah, and this is probably going to sound contrarian, but Levi's is the best-selling denim brand in the world. And it's also the best-selling denim brand on eBay. And some people might say, yeah, there's a lot of competition. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of competition because there's a big market. A lot of people want to buy it. A lot of people like Levi's. A lot of older people like Levi's. Younger people like Levi's. Men like it. Women like it. I mean, it's just a very popular, iconic brand. It's been around forever. They've done a lot of things right for a lot of decades. So I would always look for Levi's.
Jason, we always notice when somebody says something at this point. When you said older people, you look my way. Is that an issue?
Well, hey, if it fits, what can I say? No, I didn't look your way. I mean, it's a cross-generational brand, and you don't find that in fashion very often.
Have you ever, because I actually saw, this is kind of getting off on a segue here. I saw an article about a pair of Levi's. Mm-hmm. It was from, 1850s, I want to say, something like that. Have you ever come across anything like that? I think they were a pair of overalls or something like that. And they ended up selling for $50,000 or something ridiculous like that. Have you ever seen anything like that? Or
no, because I can guarantee you would hear about it on the Prof Sales channel.
as you're waving out the door to a nice Bahama vacation.
I might just be done at that point. I'm like, whatever. It's not going to get any better than this. It's all done.
Done.
Yeah, some of those old late 19th century Levi pairs, if you can find them, are incredibly valuable. 5 figures for sure. Because people collect them. Even some that are back in like the 1920s and 30s can go for a few $1,000s. So it's not even just that late. I don't even know where you'd find those. It'd be very rare to find one of those just popping up at Goodwill, but who knows? I keep hoping one day.
You never know, I guess.
However, you do find I found some 70s with the big E.
That's actually interesting because I have had zero luck finding those. And man, I look every time. I look at every pair of Levi's just for that factor. So that's a great find if you found some pair from the 70s. That's awesome.
And it brought in nice. And then a couple Sherpa jackets I found too. They weren't very big nice. E's, but they were older. So Yeah, great question, Mo. Bringing up that vintage stuff.
Oh yeah, that kind of stuff always sticks in my mind. I guess maybe the high dollar amount. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what if we flip it around? What's kind of something that you would avoid? Are there any jean brands that you'd say, you know what, I'd leave that alone?
Oh, well, I just realized I didn't give you the other two brands. I was hitting real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead.
We got off on Levi's, which we could talk about all day. American Eagle is a very just run-of-the-mill brand, but it sells, especially longs. People love them. And I just love 7 for All Mankind. It's probably my favorite brand. It's a higher-end jean and will definitely bring good money, especially there's a couple fits of it especially that go really well. In terms of, and so you were asking me about which ones I would avoid?
Yeah, if there were any, yeah.
Yeah, and I hate to do this, but like the Walmart brands just aren't that valuable. Now, I'm going to say that doesn't mean you can't resell them. It doesn't mean you can't make a profit on them. I'm not suggesting that. But when you have brands like LEI that you can buy at Walmart for $18.50 new, I mean, how much money are you really going to make on it? You know, I mean, it's just, you might sell it for $12 maybe, you know, if it's pre-owned maybe, and that's probably at the high end, unless it's something kind of special. And it's just, and I read this stat the other day that said Walmart, there's a Walmart within 10 miles of 90% of the U.S. population. So it's not like people don't have access to
similar,
them.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's nothing against their brands. Wrangler is sold at Walmart. Nothing against Wrangler. I do sell some Wrangler. I don't really consider them a Walmart brand because, you know, they were around a long time before Walmart.
Right.
But I just think those brands are so common, and if a brand is selling for $20 new, you know, at a store, what are you really, even if you have it new on eBay, what are you really going to be able to sell it for? You know, it's just not going to go for a big price.
Okay, is it possibly because of overproduction, I should say, or it's just obviously the price as well? But
yeah.
Okay.
And it's desirability too. Obviously, if it's selling new for $20, how much is a premium you're going to be worth?
Sure. And then I guess when you talk about these higher end brands, I've heard about a lot of people saying, well, I found this, but is it real? And you see people posting pictures. Have you found any? Are there any telltale signs to say, you know what, this is a fake of whatever brand?
Yeah, it's really brand specific, and there aren't that many. First of all, I'm going to say there aren't that many fakes you're going to run across, just because the vast majority of jeans are not faked. However, you know, certain brands in the past, like True Religion and Diesel to some extent, you know, they had a run there where they were faked quite heavily. I saw a stat that said maybe as much as 60% of the True Religions at one point 15 years ago were fake, which is crazy to think about.
That is crazy.
So yeah, I mean, you definitely need to do your homework, but you know, if it's a pair of like Levi's 505s, it's not going to be faked. I mean, it should be almost, not that it's impossible, it's just pretty rare. So just the higher end brands, I mean, if you get all excited about something because you know how much it can sell for, you probably need to check it.
Gotcha. And then I guess the other part to that, are there any things, I guess this could go good or bad, are there any sizes that you look for or sizes that you avoid? Or like, is it, for example, other than men's, is children's good and women's jeans, I'm assuming, would sell pretty well as well?
Yeah. I think with, we actually don't sell a lot of kids just because they're a little bit pricier to what the average selling price is in my area. In terms of the sizing though, anytime you can find a women's and a long, it's worth picking up and checking out in a lot of brands, because that's an unusual size. And what happens is, this goes back to my retail days, stores just do not get a big size run of certain sizes and certain fits. And so therefore, when they sell out and those brands hit clearance and they blow out of the store, or they ship them off and sell them in bulk, now the customer can't find them. And so, you know, if she's a size, you know, 10 long, you know, and she's, you know, 5'10", it's going to be tough for her to find her jeans a lot of time, because that store might have only gotten one, you know, in that size. And once somebody buys it locally, she's going to be out of luck and have to come to eBay or online to find it. So longs are always good. bigger sizes are good too, but only to an extent. I mean, there's some companies that specialize in bigger sizes, and theirs are, just sort of run-of-the-mill jeans when you find those.
Gotcha. What's your personal favorite brand that when you pick it up, when you find them, you go, your mind goes cha-ching?
I mean, 7Fam is my favorite brand just because I like the jean, but there's other ones too that, BKE is a great brand. Adriano Goldschmied's a great brand. There's some jeans of those that go for good money. Miss Me, which is a buckle brand, BKE brand, is good as well. Any of those I always like. I don't really get that excited about True Religions and Diesels. Some Diesels are good. Some are just sort of eh. True Religions, I'm going to spend 5 minutes trying to authenticate it, make sure it's legit.
Gotcha. Now, one thing I did learn from watching your content, stuff like you said 7 for all mankind. But then there's another gene out there called 7 for 7. And a lot of times I have noticed resellers that get into jeans, I picked up a pair of 7. Well, those aren't 7 for mankind. Are there other instances like that where they've got kind of, Coca-Cola and then Uncola type stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other brands out there, and even knockoffs not even knockoffs, but just variations of the brand itself that look very similar. Like there's a brand called, I want to say it's Zico, and forgive me, I don't know what it's short for, if anything, but it looks very similar to 7 for all mankind on the back pocket. Like the design is very similar. It's clear that it's, sort of the copy. You mentioned 7 itself. 7 isn't trying to look the same as 7 for all mankind. It just has the same name.
Right.
They just happen to have the same name or a similar name. But a lot like that back pocket design on a lot of jeans is really what catches my eye first, because I can spot a lot of jeans just by that design and say, oh, that's one of my brands, but it's not that many out there really that mimic each other. So I don't think you have to worry about it as much as probably some people are seeing, monsters under the bed.
Gotcha. Now, let me ask you real quick about condition. When you're sourcing and picking, what things do you look at in the jean as you pick it up? What are your key points for conditions?
A few of them are kind of non-starters for me if these things are in bad shape or have issues. Zipper's got to be there and working. Important to check that it works too, by the way. Just because it's there, it may not work. All the belt loops need to be attached, top and bottom, so I can just kind of run my hand across those. I want to make sure there's no big, huge holes that aren't just sort of the natural distressing of the jean, or if it's a trendy jean that maybe has holes, that might be okay. But and then stains, especially on the inside. Stains on the inside are like a no-go for me, because that's at least a trip through the washing machine if it even comes out. And I really don't want to wash, all these items. I want them to be ready to go when I sell them. It's a lot of extra time and energy and expense. So those 3 or 4 things, anything that's ripped off, like a pocket ripped off, is a no-go as well. Wear on the cuffs is not necessarily a bad thing. Some people like that. Wear on the knees can be okay too, as long as it's not coming apart, and you just close it. But those things, those first few, those are sort of non-starters for me. I just don't even pick them up. I don't care what the brand is.
Gotcha. I keyed on that stain on the inside. That's something I've been missing. So thank you for that. That's really great. Jason, is there anything else that you'd like to that we didn't cover that you'd like to share about sourcing and reselling jeans?
No, I mean, you guys did a great job, and I thought the questions were really good. I think that, jeans is like anything else. It's a niche, and if you take the time to research it and investigate, what's local and available in your area. I happen to be blessed with a lot of great opportunity in my area. Your area may be different. I think you'll be able to find, a staple commodity item that, people aren't going to quit wearing. I mean, they make over 1 billion pair a year produced every year, which is crazy to think about worldwide. And, there's entire countries where people don't even really wear jeans that much at this point and still could. So don't be afraid to go out there, step out and get into jeans. Don't be afraid of the fakes, and just do your research and learn as you go.
Awesome. I want to personally thank you, Jason, for coming on our podcast and how gracious you were when I reached out. That's just very commendable. And again, if you want to learn from Jason, it is Prof Sales and him and his partner, Karin.
Yep.
And they have a lot of jean stuff. They're also moving into shoes. So you can learn from that.
I was going to ask about that, but we'll save that for another show.
Save that for another show. Maybe we'll get him and Tino on and do a round table. Yeah, that'd be a great one. But Jason, thank you very much, and everybody, thank you for listening to the Reseller Niche Podcast. Have a good
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Russ. I think we can see from that that the prof really is a professor. Everything is analytically based. And he really takes that and he goes through his entire process and breaks it down in a really simple way, just by going through the steps one by one.
Right. And I love the fact that his processes are duplicatable, and I'm a personal proof of that. That's one of the reasons I reached out and wanted to get him on the Reseller Niche Podcast, because that's how I learned. So I wanted to share that with anybody that was listening.
Absolutely.
It was good. Hopefully, just as we're finding out each time, there's so much knowledge out there and there's so little time. So it would be awesome to have Jason back too. Yeah,
we've got a lot more to ask him about all the other things he's selling, not just jeans.
Right.
So we'll have him back on again.
Right. So thank you everybody that listened to this podcast. And if you're on YouTube, thank you on YouTube. Please reach out to us through
our Facebook group, Reseller Niche Help group on Facebook, like Russ said, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Reseller Niche Podcast. Show notes and social media links are located at resellerniche.com. Please like and subscribe to us on iTunes.